Sweet. I'm super stoked for today. We're here with Paul Allen, founder of Ancestry, Citizen Portal, Soar.AI. And if you're wondering what AI can do for you and enrich your human experience, this is what we're diving right into. So let's get it going. And you might be like, I hate your 2 cents. You're really good. I've noticed you're really good at listening to people, and you've probably already thought of this or thought of everything most people say, but you're so nice. You're like, oh yeah, great idea. Love to hear it. It feels like the marketing tactic is to bring people into Citizen Portal, right? But I think it's like almost the opposite, is taking Citizen Portal to where people are and communicating the language that they communicate. And that's my biggest barrier to entry that I see, is like with the articles, like I'm an idiot. So I'm not the smart person. And so I see them and I'm like, I would never read any of these. Like I see it and I just see words, and I'm a terrible reader as well. And I think most people are terrible readers. I don't think most people read things anymore. And so it's like trying to get out headlines on social media that's text-based, I think is hard. And I don't think you'll be as good of a return as if you can get it out onto video-based, like Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. Like the 15 to 30 second videos that explain the points and are just like, boom, which is cool with the AI voices. This is what gets me really excited, is you have the AI voices on the topics, and then you have the B-roll come in, so you don't even need a visual of a person. And it just is like exciting stuff, and then it just gets
You
shot
have great
out.
instincts, because if we make people come to a platform for citizens and that's the only place that we exist, then we will fail, because that just doesn't happen these days. You're right. The mobile apps, the short format video, billions of people spending trillions of hours consuming that algorithmic content, and it really knows what they're interested in. I mean, people will spend hours and hours.
Well, and the data you get back on those people.
So I think your suggestion is really good. I think we are making some steps in that direction. And just to kind of make it clear how I view startups, when the software industry in the 90s, WordPerfect, Novell, back in the day when PCs were becoming very common and then people would ship software, the average software project took 18 months to 24 months to build. And you would design it, architect it, plan it, and then code it. And after 18 to 24 months, you would launch it. And you had one marketing launch. You got to advertise it to all of your current customers and to everyone else who might need it. And it was like this big effort to build the product you had envisioned, and launch it, and hope you got it right. I read a book in 98 called Net Gain, published by the Harvard Business School. And it talked about how the internet changes everything about product development and software or websites. And so instead of viewing yourself as a designer or an architect of a building that you're going to design every floor and have blueprints for everything we're going to build, like that whole waterfall software modality, where you build something for years and then ship it and hope that you got it right. The metaphor that the authors encouraged startup founders to embrace was, you're not an architect. You're not building something you know what it's going to end up being. You're a gardener. Plant 1,000 seeds and watch which ones grow, and change your plans every day based on the response of users. And so we started adopting that mentality and saying, okay, Ancestry.com, myfamily.com, what if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do this? And as we start to see, oh, wow, we did a new feature, 10,000 people used it. Oh, that other feature, only 300 people used. Okay, obviously that's not important. Let's minimize that or take it off. And so we became gardeners. And when you plant seeds and they grow really fast, you pay more attention to them. So you respond to the growth. So that's exactly what we're doing again with Citizen Portal. When you have the ability to upload tens of thousands of videos and extract 1 million meaningful articles for every city, state, and county in the United States so citizens can get informed, that's the beginning. But the clipping and the sharing of very short clips that say what important thing is happening in my school board or my city or my county, that will have to be delivered on the 3 platforms you mentioned. And we've got a big step in that direction. I believe tomorrow our search engine goes live so that all the articles we produce will be searchable from the homepage of Citizen Portal. But one of our engineers has been connecting to Blue Sky, X, Reddit, Telegram, and WhatsApp, so that every minute of the day where an AI article has been generated that is something of interest to a citizen somewhere, they will publish the headline in all 5 of those platforms with a thumbnail and a link back to the original article, the video clip, and the transcript. Now, that's a step towards, okay, people don't want to read articles. What if we created a TikTok reel or a series of clips that is exactly what you as a citizen are interested in? So we can go from the readable content to, hey, here's 5 to 20 30-second video clips that you might consume in a few minutes that literally tell you what is going on in your city, in your county, in your state, and what your elected representatives are doing and saying on a daily basis, if you care. And if it's an issue that affects you and you probably should take action, we want all the content received by our citizens, all of our users, to be relevant to them and actionable. Part of the problem with passively consuming trillions of hours of content is we've become useless creatures. Like, we just consume always and do nothing. And that is not a healthy blueprint for
and a lot of things
life well
aren't
lived.
inspiring. They're just like watching these dances or whatever it might be. So it's not like motivating you to go be like, oh, I want to go and like achieve my dreams.
One of the fun and kind of weird things that's emerged in the last couple of years is influencers who do reaction videos to other people's work. And it's like, those have become extremely popular. At least they're taking an action. At least they're curating and commenting on something that someone else has done. But the Citizen Portal clips ought to be relevant to you, and you can change the algorithm. We'll be very transparent with the controls.
That's the other cool thing is like, you kind of just get thrown stuff at you
Right.
on every other social media. So I think you've mentioned before the Liberty like layer of filtering, which I think is the cool part of it, is that you really can get exactly what you're looking for.
We want you to not only get exactly what you're looking for, but to, control the dials and levers, and we'll be transparent about why are you seeing this. It'll be very clear. Then what actions could you take if you care about this topic? And there are dozens of actions that citizens might choose to take if they're in favor of an idea or if they're against an idea. And we haven't yet perfected the AI of knowing, given this topic in this government meeting, what actions can I take? You can email your legislator or your city council member, maybe sign a petition, maybe
That's genius.
Donate to something. But there needs to be a set of actions that you can take, including just sharing it with your neighbors and maybe scheduling a meeting to talk about it. Like, citizens aren't helpless, and we're sovereign, and we have agency. So once you have information, what actions could you take? Now, we don't yet know what actions people might want to take.
The petitioning one's genius.
But the crowdfund or the organic growth, the gardening, if we give people the ability to tell us what actions they want to do, and we just start responding to their requests and building petition features or donation features or meeting organizers or whatever tools citizens want, and they're in the platform, wow, then all of a sudden, hundreds of millions of people who are currently largely ignorant of what's going on and really have little to no power, now they're fully informed, but they have tools to take actions individually and as groups, and to move the government in a direction that is good for everybody. So anyway, the founders kind of created our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. I think there were maybe 3 million American citizens, and Common Sense came out and woke everybody up. I think Common Sense per capita was the best-selling book in American history, and it just ignited an interest in citizens to be in charge of the government instead of being remote victims of the British Crown's arbitrary rules. Like, it woke up this country. And I feel like, Vivek Ramaswamy has been saying this is a 1776 moment. He's been saying that for about a year or two. And now he's actually playing a key role in slashing government spending and regulation. It maybe is a 1776 moment. And maybe on a per capita basis, we need 1 out of every 6 American citizens to become informed and engaged. if we really want to get government going in the right direction, which is for our happiness, safety, and common welfare. Common defense is a big part of it, but happiness and safety and welfare are words in our founding documents. And are we maximizing the happiness of American citizens? No, it might be at an all-time low. Loneliness, stress, anxiety, depression, suicide, deaths of despair are at an all-time high. Is that the cause or the problem of individuals just doing stupid things? No, it's a systemic problem. One of the greatest thinkers of all time, Edwards Deming, who was an engineer who created the post-World War II Japanese economic miracle. Japan was decimated, and in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they adopted all the practices of Edwards Deming and created a manufacturing powerhouse and became one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Edwards Deming says that if things go wrong in a factory, in a manufacturing enterprise, 94% of the time, it's not the error of an individual. It was a systemic design flaw. 94% of failure is not your fault. It's the fault of the system, the processes, or lack thereof. And when I think about the founders and the system they designed, man, it worked well for 2 centuries. Like, America became the greatest economic miracle of all time, and there was amazing opportunity. And obviously, we had to rectify the horrors of slavery and the horrors of, women not having rights to vote. And so over time, they formed a self-improving, amendments to the Constitution was kind of their self-learning system. Like, hey, we can change the Constitution. And we did that a number of times in a very, very important ways. But then the last maybe 100 years, we've totally lost the spirit of the founding era. And the income tax, the federal government, I studied Russian and Soviet government for many years in college. And centrally planned economies never, ever, ever work and never will work. And our U.S. Congress somehow has the hubris to think that they can centrally plan trillions of dollars of spending every year. It never works. Our GDP growth is abysmal. So you have to kind of step back, limit government spending, limit government there's only 19 enumerated powers for the federal government in the U.S. Constitution. Why are we doing everything? Like, why have we become a socialist, centrally planned country? It just never will work.
Well, I think personal interests definitely get involved. Like, whoever's there, now I think in the past it's been like the oligarchs and whatever people, and now there's just money and business have become so powerful that it's seeped into the government. And what's kind of wild is other countries like Argentina have taken what we've done, and then now over the last few years have gone and really implemented.
In 1 year.
Is it only 1 year?
I mean, 1 year Malay has been in office 1 year. And it's a complete turnaround. This 100 years ago, it was one of the wealthiest countries on earth, and then socialism crept in. And this country has dire poverty and massive overregulation and tons of corruption. So Milei gets elected, and he's only got like 10% of the House or 10% of the Senate and 15% of the House. His party isn't very strong. But with the popular vote and with him coming into office, they had a list of thousands of regulations that could be immediately cut, and spending would go down, and the burden on businesses would go down. And so anyway, in 1 year, they're beginning an amazing path to an economic miracle. The GDP of Argentina will probably double in the next 6 or 7 years. And the number of people in poverty will be dropping dramatically. And Milei has just said on the Lex Friedman podcast on November 20th, I encourage everyone to listen to that. It's a 2-hour podcast. He said, we are cutting 1 to 5 more regulations every day. And in the next year or two, we will be the freest country in the world. We'll be more free than Ireland and New Zealand and Switzerland. We have fewer regulations, and that will unleash the economic creativity of all of our Argentinian people. And now the United States is asking them advice. Elon and Vivek are talking to the ministers over there who had mapped out all the regulations that needed to be cut. And it's like, wow, the United States might actually go down a good path in the next few months or years and get downsize, right-size federal government so that it's not a huge percentage of the economy and a huge drain on the rest of the economy. So I'm actually very hopeful. I think some miraculous things are now possible, but it really depends on how we respond as U.S. citizens. Do we actually care enough to get involved?
Well, and that's like the thing, and has been so shocking to me is that one, how little people know, and then how apathetic people are. One, like just as you were talking about some of the stuff, the potential of what the social media style platform could do on Citizen Portal eventually is, I don't know if you're familiar with Sean Ryan's petition that he's doing about like the 85 million per week that's going to the Taliban. And he has this petition that's gone out, I think it's got like 325,000 signatures. But imagine on Citizen Portal, they have all of the data that shows, like I've posted this stuff before on my TikToks and Instagram. It gets flagged because for misinformation when I'm citing actual sources from our government. It's not like I've some crazy person. It's literally from like Congress showing the Congress documents. So I don't know how like much more true you can get than that. But imagine being able to show that documentation and then say, hey, sign this petition to millions of users. You get millions of petitions signed literally in a matter of seconds. And you're like, hey, Congress, we have 100 million people, literally a third of the United States is interested in this. We need to address this. And that's like the reality, I think, of what you're trying to do that gets me so excited is it makes people just don't know where to begin. And I was one of them. I didn't know where I could begin to get involved. Like, do I have to go run for city council? I have a family. I have to go work. I have to go do all these things. So it feels impossible to really make a difference. But with what your vision is with Citizen Portal, and even just by getting the information as easily as you can, I think is phenomenal.
Do you know, it is hard to know where to start if you're concerned as a citizen. Many people don't want to run for office because you're immediately going to be vilified and hated by half of the country. It's a really tough time to get involved. Or
city or state or county.
Yeah, exactly. So, as soon as you choose your party affiliation, then half the people dislike you, and then you say anything and they're going to critique you because you're not on their team. So there's a lot of vitriol. There are some people that have a lot of wealth that are able to do things that are not available to the average person. I have a friend who has funded, I think he spent $6.8 million in Washington State earlier this year to do 8 ballot initiatives. Citizens in Washington and Oregon and many other states can actually create a ballot initiative or get enough signatures that the state legislature has to hold a hearing. And they might not put it into their legislative schedule unless by law, they're required to, if there is enough signatures. He had to spend, I think, $6.8 million of his own money to gather 2.8 million signatures. But 5 of the 8 initiatives are now state law in Washington State. Now, that's an amazing initiative that one person took and put his money where his mouth was. And he had to go get signatures all throughout Washington State, and they had to be verified and all that stuff. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. got more signatures, I think, than any candidate in American history to get him on the ballot of 50 states. That was miraculous that he could actually have enough funding. And I think Nicole Shanahan enabled enough of her personal money to come into the campaign. But government shouldn't be that expensive for all of us to get the government outcomes that we care about. It can't just work for the elite or the large corporations, the donors, the lobbyists. It just can't work that way. We'll lose all of our prosperity in the future if we keep going down that path. So I think there's a lot of possibilities. Obviously, Citizen Portal can't survive and thrive and have that kind of impact unless we have millions or tens of millions of active users. So that's the key, is how do we take all of our data, our news, headlines, our articles, our analysis of every bill, and distribute that where the people are. So in addition to the news feed on Citizen Portal being customizable to you, any nonprofit or political party or activist group or think tank in the United States or any university, anyone that wants to embed the Citizen Portal newsfeed on their own website, it's a line of JavaScript and a bunch of parameters. And now your readers, your viewers, your members get the filtered feed or the selection of topics that you care about, and that can be available on any website. I mean, we have a decentralized or distributed model, so we have to process all the data and create all the content, but we're willing to let anyone publish it anywhere. It's like, Benjamin Franklin was quite a founding father. I mean, I don't think the United States would have succeeded in forming with the way it did without his statesmanship. But I'm reading the Walter Isaacson biography of Benjamin Franklin, and he was a newspaper publisher and printer for most of his life. And he saw what newspapers meant in New England. And he had a way of being funny and informative and engaging his readers. He was one of the most, and I think when he died, did he say on his tombstone, does it say, "B. Franklin Printer"?
I don't know.
I think that's kind of what he said, I want to be known for. I'm a printer. So kind of a blue collar, self-taught. I think his brother was a printer too, but that was his vocation. And then, the second half of his life, he spent a lot in public service. But I think it's kind of a moment where an electronic publisher, with all the kind of technology platforms that we have today and all the social media outlets that we have today, can somehow, organize an effort like this, that the newspaper industry has been decimated the last 30 years. There's no way that local newspapers can afford to send a journalist to go to almost any government meeting. So for 30 years, there's been an increasingly large void of information. I was a Daily Herald newspaper delivery boy at age 13, and I fell in love with newspapers, and I would read the newspaper almost cover to cover after school every day. I would spread it out on the floor of my living room, and I would read so much news. And that world doesn't exist anymore. Now we're all in silos where we follow that one person or these channels. The algorithm knows what we're interested in. We don't know what's going on in the world today. Like, the amount of uninformed populace is massive, partly because the newspaper industry has pretty much died.
Mm-hmm.
So if a bunch of websites and mobile apps and think tanks and nonprofit thought leadership groups and, the whole infrastructure of American politics can somehow have access to all the data as it happens in an objective way, then maybe we actually end up in a better spot where you don't have to subscribe to a newspaper. You just turn on any of your apps or log into a website, and now you know what's going on in your school district, your local and state politics, and the federal government. And you can go as deep as you want on any topic. You have access to the budget data. You have AI analyzing the potential positive outcomes of any bill or policy, the potential negative outcomes. AI will get smarter and smarter over time. And maybe the general welfare, the happiness, the safety, and the peace of our citizens can go up to a new level that it's never even achieved before. I do think it's possible.
No, I think it totally is. And the cool thing about what you're doing is, you mentioned something about a D Corp that's not in existence quite yet, but could be. And really, if I understand the gist of it, is that everyone or millions of people could be the owner of it.
That's right.
And what I think is, I actually know someone who's done this. So you said you haven't come across anyone in the US, right, that's done this. I actually know a restaurant owner. She's like one of the creators. If you go like downtown Provo, she's like the person who made most of those menus. And all of her restaurants are like these, everyone who works there is an owner in the restaurant. She owns like 10 of them.
Wow.
But every 15-year-old that works there owns a portion. At the end of the year, they do distributions. And what she said she's gotten all of her restaurants is this level of participation, but like they believe in what they're doing. They're not just there showing up for a job, they're showing up for their business. And when they're going in cleaning the dishes, they're cleaning the dishes like it's their business, like it's their dishes. And they have like the reports where they're like having to buy more dishes maybe. And so like, we can't break these. We have to buy more soap. We have to maximize how much soap we're using, or making a better customer experience. Everyone's invested in it because it's their business, and everyone succeeds or everyone fails.
I love that. That's an ownership mindset that I wish everybody had, both in terms of the business they work for. If they owned part of it, it would change how they interact with everybody, but also in our society as a whole. We've lost that feeling of We are the sovereign citizens in these United States. We really should be involved because it's ours. It belongs to us. Like, this is our country, and we just can't let it be run off the rails by a few people who have personal agendas that are not good for the overall society. But I think I've been to so many business entities over the past couple of decades, and often I will notice somebody doing something, caring, extraordinary service, and often I'll say, "Are you the owner?" And they'll be like, "Yep." I'm like, I can really spot who the owner is almost every time I go into an establishment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because their mindset is totally different. And if you can spread that to the masses, like I was saying in the little event that we did today, I think Uber and Airbnb are two of the greatest companies that have ever been invented. They're just a massively powerful, important way of taking your car or your home and monetizing it, and having a ability to make money and to be a super host or to be a 5-star Uber rated driver. And I just think they're fantastic companies. But one of my greatest regrets is that the Uber drivers aren't earning equity in Uber. The Airbnb hosts are not earning equity in Airbnb. So these $100 billion, potentially $1 trillion companies could end up being owned by a handful of people. And when Uber has fully self-driving cars replacing millions of drivers, all the drivers for 5, 10, 15 years who helped build this phenomenal corporation may end up with nothing. And I think that's a missed opportunity for the founders and creators of Uber and Airbnb to create a long-term equity opportunity for millions of people. And I think a decorporation model could go in that direction. Now, maybe someday there will be a competitor to Airbnb and a competitor to Uber that give equity to their hosts and give equity to their drivers. And maybe someday they would beat Airbnb and Uber because they didn't do that. Anyway, it's a possibility. And I think you just take a shot and, try to move capitalism and civilization, government in a direction that's better serving everybody.
Well, I think you're a case study. You already had Ancestry. What did it sell for? $4 billion?
The last one was $4.8 billion.
Yeah, it's just a small chunk of change.
But as you know, the famous phrase, finders keepers, founders weepers. If you look at who made the $4.8 billion, very, very little of it went to the original founding team or the original angel investors. It was late stage VCs and private equity that have made most 90+% of the money from that.
Oh, I bet.
So I didn't understand governance and liquidation preferences and venture term sheets. And so Soar and Citizen Portal are set up with a structure that protects every founder, every investor, every employee, and does not allow for big money, big check writers in the future to come in and wrest control away from the rest of us. And so I like the decorporation idea, because if someday Citizen Portal was worth tens of billions or hundreds of billions and had 10 million shareholders that are all U.S. citizens that care about the platform, its accuracy, its integrity, and it has allowed them to become truly informed and engaged as American citizens. Like, I want a massively distributed cap table. I don't want a handful of people.
Describe what you mean by that.
Well, if you think about cap tables.
I bet a lot of people don't understand what that is.
Yeah, that's true.
Inform me.
When you start a company and you own 100% of it, there's one person on the cap table, and that is you. When you go raise $1 million from 10 angel investors, now there's 11 people on the cap table. If you have 50 employees and you give them stock options, now there's 61 people on the cap table. That means how many people own a stake in this company. Cap table means capitalization. It's like it forecasts, okay, who's going to get what when the company is acquired or sold? Or if dividends are how are you dividing up the profits of the company? So it's actually possible to have your cap table. I've had dozens of people tell me, you have the most messed up cap table I've ever seen. I'm so proud of that. We have 550 shareholders in Soar.com. That's the parent company, the AI studio that's behind Citizen Portal. We have 1,850 shareholders in Citizen Portal already, and we're just getting started. I would like to have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of shareholders someday in Citizen Portal and some of our other entities. And what you can do now, if there is legislation that allows a D corporation to be formed and to exist. B corporations were invented in Maryland in 2009. The legislature passed laws saying there's such a thing as a benefit corporation, a public benefit corporation. And so thousands of great companies, including Cotopaxi up in Salt Lake, have adopted the B Corp status, and they have to do certain things to become a B Corp, but they also can give money to philanthropic causes without being sued by their shareholders. In traditional capitalism, Milton Friedman style capitalism, it's shareholder capitalism. And if you're a shareholder in my company and I don't maximize profits, if I'm not stewarding your money with the maximization of profits as my highest motive, you can sue me for a breach of my fiduciary responsibilities. The B Corporation gives the people who run a company a little bit of freedom. You could say in my bylaws that 1% of our profits are going to go to this philanthropy or this humanitarian effort. And you know that when you sign up to be an investor. And you approve that in advance. It's not forced on you by an ESG banking system that says, we're going to cause all these corporations to do all these payments and cause all these social things to happen, and we're going to kind of make it all happen without
hire these people
without the approval of the shareholders. Like, it's very different from that. I'm not a fan of coercion. I am a fan of voluntarily doing things that you think will be good for a lot of people. So the D corporation could, for example, have a cap table that is on the blockchain. It could have a public ledger tracking all purchases and sales. So you'd have an ongoing cap table on the blockchain. And for the first time in human history, you could have an algorithm that prevents concentrated ownership of equity in the company. You might have a limit of no person, no individual can own more than 1/1000th of this corporation. So D stands for distributed. It really means massively distributed. And the goal would be that a founding team and a bunch of investors would end up growing a very valuable company, taking it public or harvesting it. So there's a liquidity event for all the early risk takers. Then the economic engine morphs into a massively distributed company, widely owned by its employees, by its customers, by the general public. And you end up with potentially 1 million shareholders in a $1 trillion company. Rather than Walmart, for example, 5 heirs of Sam Walton own 60% of Walmart. That is not massively distributed. That's massively concentrated capitalism. And that's fine. That's how it was set up. That's legal. It's what they do. And they're probably great humanitarians. But that's not how I think the economic engines that founders start should end up running for decades. I'd like to see an option for a founder to say, I like B corporations, but I want to be a D Corp. In 30, 40, 50 years when I retire, I want to have a multi-billion-dollar profit engine that's benefiting millions of shareholders or all my employees and their families and a bunch of shareholders. And I want a algorithm that prevents concentrated ownership in the long run. It doesn't mean it's a socialistic, communistic thing. It means it's an entrepreneur like John Lewis in the UK in the 1940s. John Spedden Lewis inherited his business from his father, had 14,000 employees. They were one of the biggest retailers in the UK, and he turned over ownership to his 14,000 employees. Today, John Lewis Partners in the UK is a multi-billion-dollar, very successful company. I believe they have 88,000 employees who are all owners of John Lewis Partners. And that's the model that I wish millions of young entrepreneurs in the US were saying, I don't want to be Zuckerberg. I don't want to be Bill Gates. I don't want to be a billionaire. I want to be the next John Spedden Lewis who creates an economic engine that millions of people will benefit from in the long term.
Well, at least the socialists. All the people that are like, we should have the government do everything. We'll just start a company that has everyone be owners. This is this type of socialism that could actually potentially work. And I don't know if
he wrote a book. He wrote a book in the 40s or 50s. Sadly, it was the thickest, most inaccessible book I've ever tried to read. It's like a 600-page tome. It was horrible. But the book was entitled An Experiment in Industrial Democracy. was a really cool concept. I tell people that if he had given a 7-minute TED Talk in 1945, millions of entrepreneurs would say, I want to be just like John Lewis. Instead, he wrote a horrible book that documents his brilliant idea, but in the most inaccessible way. So great idea, terrible packaging. Didn't spread at all.
This isn't shocking. So like for people who don't know, I mean, if there's companies evaluated at $1 trillion one day, which I think it very well could be, there's 1 million investors, 1 million people owning it. That'd be
A million millionaires,
which I think is an awesome concept to
Do you
think
know
of.
1 out of 6 people in Singapore is a millionaire?
I didn't know that. That's wild.
Like, why don't we have 1 out of 6 people in the United States of America be a millionaire? Like, we have the biggest economy in the world by far, but the way they've set up their corporations, their government, it's been so successful, but 1 out of 6 people is a millionaire in Singapore. Like, the prosperity and the abundance, we have the resources, we could do it. You just need to kind of restructure how companies are formed, how government works, and that the insiders, the system isn't rigged so that the rich keep getting richer at the expense of half the population making $15 an hour or less. Like, there's something rotten in Denmark, but not in Denmark, here
Yes.
in the United States of America.
Well, I think that's what like people who like, I think there's something that people on the left and the right could come to agree on is because it does foster business and innovation, but also have equality of certain outcomes. And so what's the current valuation right now for Citizen Portal?
We're raising money with accredited investors at a $12 million valuation.
So $12 million bucks. People is this being crowdfunded or if people want to invest?
We did the
what do they do?
crowdfunding last year. We're now just doing accredited investors only. We'll raise up to $2 million. We'll probably do
Awesome.
another crowdfunding in the future.
And so keep an eye out on the crowdfunding because imagine you log on to Citizen Portal, you first sign up, spend $5 or $10, $100, buy your smallest portion when it's worth less than $20 million. And then even if it's the billion stage, what would that be? From 20 million to $1 billion? I'm terrible at math.
Well, from 12 million to $1 billion, it would be almost 100-fold increase.
There you go, $100 and you'd make $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is not
$1,000,
financial advice, and this is
No.
like you have to do all the disclaimers. But accredited investors. So one thing I love in 2012, a bipartisan effort led to the passage of the Jobs Act. President Obama signed it. I think Republican Congress. Anyway, it was a bipartisan effort, and that created the whole concept of Regulation CF, crowdfunding. So since 1934, I think when the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, was created by the U.S. government to prevent the 1920s, the roaring 20s, and all the stock market shenanigans that happened and the pump and dump schemes and all the Securities and Exchange Commission was really needed as a response to a lot of wheeler dealers who were lying about their corporations. And so now you have all these rules about transparency and reporting. But from 1934 till 2012, the government's definition of a intelligent investor was how much money you have or how much money you make.
Which segmented out a lot of the population.
So a lot of smart people were not deemed savvy enough to invest in an early stage company. And that allows the rich to keep getting richer. The deal flow comes to the wealthy people. In 2012, and sadly it took till 2016 for the SEC to finalize all the rules, but now there's over 20 SEC approved crowdfunding platforms. And now an entrepreneur, and for 2016 to 2022, you could raise up to $1 million a year for a startup company. That's not enough money for a startup company. Now they raised it to $5 million per calendar year. There is an effort to raise it to $20 million per calendar year. That means you don't need venture capitalists anymore. If you're an entrepreneur and the SEC lifts the crowdfunding limit to 20 million, you would never need a venture capitalist again. Because then you could do a Reg A plus follow-on offering. I think it's up to 150 million. So do you know Angel Studios?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know they recently did a Reg A plus that was for accredited investors? Well, maybe it was for everybody. I can't remember what the definition of, not a Reg A plus. They raised $21 million in 10 days. Valuing Angel Studios at something like $920 to $950 million. Do you know how many shareholders they have? 150,000. So this Utah-based innovative company that's disrupting Hollywood and in the next 10, 20, 30 years might be the biggest producer of blockbuster films and streaming shows in the world.
I just saw their movie, Homestead.
My friend Benton Crane, I think, was the producer or director of that.
It was really, really
He did
good.
Harmon Brothers for years, and he just texted me like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, yeah, my first movie's come out. I've got another one coming out next year.
Phenomenal movie.
But it's the crowdfunding and the guild where you can pay money and be a judge on the early pilot episodes to decide what should get funded. Like, they've crowdsourced the whole process of creating or deciding on movies and then funding the movies. And this is such an exciting company. And 150,000 shareholders is remarkable.
Well, what's genius too is they know if something's going to perform. So is this good enough for you to want to put your money behind it and push out, see more about it? So they're already getting all the data on if their show, their movie, their TV series is actually going to perform.
I believe it's likely that when that becomes a company, one of the most valuable companies in the world, it could have 1 million shareholders or more. And they'll actually get to vote on and decide what movies, what films, what creative works should be funded by this amazing process. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of Neil and Jeffrey Harmon. I love what they're doing. I'm so excited for their future. I hope it goes as well as it's gone over the past few years. They've overcome insane obstacles, lawsuits and judgments and really, really tough
Production world isn't
things.
easy.
Yeah.
So if people want to get involved, where can they go?
They can go to citizenportal.ai to get a free account on Citizen Portal. We really hope millions of people will sign up tomorrow, which is December the 19th. Our entirely new website should be live, and any citizen should be able to find out what's going on, local, state, or federal, with a very quick keyword search. And then set up alerts. You can do all kinds of things. You can contact us through citizenportal.ai. But if you want to reach me, go to Soar.com, and we actually have links to find out more about a bunch of our portfolio companies, and you can learn about several of our other enterprises. We are a studio, and so kind of like Harmon Brothers or Angel Studios, we're a studio not creating films, but creating companies. And we intend to have AI-generated companies that will help humans thrive in every area of life, including their civic experience. We'll launch a friend portal and a family portal next year. We have a founder portal for startups. If you want your startup to succeed, there will be a series of AI tools that will probably double or triple your chance of succeeding as a startup. If you record every call, every meeting, if you have AI guide you every step of the way from idea to exit, with an AI superintelligence as your advisor, there's a much higher chance that you will reach product market fit, get a bunch of customers, scale your business, hire the right people, and have a fantastic exit. So our founder portal, we hope, can help re-inspire millions of entrepreneurs, not only to start a company, but to grow it properly and to make the right decisions more quickly so that your chance of succeeding goes up. I think the odds of succeeding in a startup are like 10% over 5 years. Like, it should be 2 or 3 or 5 times that much. And with an AI or a series of AI agents guiding and helping you along the way, maybe automating many of the steps that you don't have time to do personally.
Labor,
exactly. There's a lot of things that AI could really help startups with. And so that's what the founder portal will do. But we also plan to have, did I say a faith portal? We have a faith portal coming out. And then an education, a series of portals to help K through 12, college education, learn any skill. We have a job portal, a career portal. We just hope to unleash a bunch of AI tools that will help people live a better life, use your time optimally, get more bang for the buck, whatever you choose to do in work and in life, and particularly deepen your family ties, increase your faith, connect to your scriptures or your religious traditions, find the truth in the wisdom of the ages and in the great religions of the world, and not just learn, not just consume for 5, 6, 7 hours a day thinking, oh, my mind is filled with great ideas. You never benefit from learning anything unless you do something about it. So we have a bias towards learning the truth and then applying it. An AI that helps you live the truth or apply the truth or apply best practices in the field that you're endeavoring to succeed in. We think that AI could be the greatest boon to personal and human success that the world has ever seen, because it will be personalized and you'll design it to help you succeed, whatever your definition of success is.
I love that. So go check out citizenportal.ai. We'll put the link here so people can check it out. Thank you so much for being on here. And yeah, this is the Vox Valdez podcast.